all of those things.
That's right. It really is. It's just all so necessary. I frankly like to focus on the things that you're least likely to hear in an MFA program or typical writing class, but that stuff is important too. Make no mistake. Let
Oh
me
yeah.
get ready to record. Ooh, record to this computer. There we go.
This meeting is
So
being
hello
recorded.
everybody. So excited to see everybody here. Who heard about this from Monkey Paw Productions on Instagram because they put up a panel. Yeah, right. How exciting. And, they're promoting their new movie Him, but I was really glad they took the opportunity to give us a little boost and help get more people here. So great to see. Wow, you're coming in fast and furious. We needed someone on the door. Where's
That's right.
cornbread on the door?
We need cornbread on the door. That's right.
We need cornbread, man.
That's just great. So we'll give people a couple more minutes to get in, and meanwhile, once again, it's just great to see people for
So
all
great to see.
sorts of different reasons. It's important to celebrate life and
Yes.
community and opportunity, and I have a huge amount to be grateful for right now, and you guys are part of that. So Tananarive and
Yeah.
I, what you're going to be listening to it's very structured in some ways, but in other ways it's not, because we talk about these things to each other and to our students and friends and
All
uh,
the time.
all the time.
Yes.
So there will be a thorough question and answer period. We have a lot to move through, and I hope that you're taking notes. We will be able to send links out afterwards. If you're not taking notes and you simply want to bask in our fabulousness, that's okay too. But in that case, we insist that you bask in each other's fabulousness as well. And even though this is not our life writing live thing, I would love it if you guys would unmute yourselves and everybody just say hi to the group. Just kind of just say
Mute
hello.
again after. Mute again after.
Hi from
Hello.
San Diego.
Hi.
Everybody.
Hello.
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 Hello. So
Hello.
great.
Hello.
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 That's it. Just,
Hello.
just remember, this is writing needs to be a community. It really is, and we will be touching on that. But be sure that you have, for me, it was a circle of friends. My sister was my first listener to my work, but I had a circle of friends, and later on, I had a circle of other writers. This is so critical. It's so important for us to communicate with each other, because writing can be incredibly lonely. And if you don't have access to writers who are above your level, you can get trapped in the stories that unsuccessful writers tell each other about why they're not published. And
Oh,
I mean, it's
he said
just it's
that.
just the case. And so it's not that they don't have other things to teach you, but in general, you want to find people who have. If you want to go to Disneyland, you want to talk to people who've been to Disneyland, not people who've heard about Disneyland or hallucinated about Disneyland or talked to somebody about Disneyland once. Somebody who's been there. The more often they've been there, the clearer the path they can do for you. Now, I'm going to shut up here for a second. Tananarive, take it away.
One of the best teachers I had who didn't know he was a teacher when I was a young reporter at the Miami Herald, and I was all excited. I'm gonna like work here during the day, and at night I'm gonna go home and work on my fiction. And he said, "Oh yeah, I used to want to be a writer." And that was such a chilling thing. I mean, at the time I was a little irritated with him, but ultimately I thank him. I thank him for that glimpse into the possibility that if I did not structure my life and stay on my path, I too could, in 30 or 40 years, be telling some young reporter, oh, yeah, I used to want to be a writer.
Yeah, there was a
So,
teacher. I had a teacher in college named Gary. I won't say his last name, but lovely man, lovely man. But he had a couple of unfinished manuscripts that had been sitting on his shelf for a decade, and it terrified me. And that led to the single worst mistake I made in my career, which is dropping out of college and just jumping into the industry. I wish if I had known now what I know then, I would have known I could have trusted myself to go ahead and stay there. But people who don't do it, will find ways to justify not having done it. And if you're not careful, their justifications will shake hands with your own smaller self. There's a part of you that's looking for a way to quit, a reason to give up. And it comes in your dark moments. It comes when you get rejected, when you think about sending things out. It's looking for support. And you don't want to get into a pity party. Really critical. Go ahead, sweetie.
So I think it's time for me to start. I'm just trying to get the right screen up that I want to share. That's a little dicey. You don't want to share the wrong screen. That's none of y'all's business what was on that screen. Okay, let me go ahead and share the correct screen. Great to see everybody. As I mentioned, some of you may be a part of my email list. Some of you may follow me on social media. So you've heard me promise that at the end of this talk, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my as yet unpublished, even as yet unedited novel that's coming out next year, which I guess is called Bear Creek Lodge. That's what I call it, Bear Creek Lodge. I have never shared any of this book with anyone except for the short story Incident at Bear Creek Lodge, which won a World Fantasy Award, and that was the core of inspiration, but I have never read any of the novel. So looking forward to sharing that with you at the end. So please do stay until the end so you can hear that. We want to talk about 3 horror writing lies. What gatekeepers don't want you to know. I am
I am
Tananarive
Stephen Barnes.
and he is Stephen Barnes. And this is just a little bit about us. I mean, we've been doing this for kind of a while now. Uh, quite in terms of our work in both novels and Steve has done a lot more television than I have, but I've done a little bit of television, and we're in the process, like literally as we speak, of co-directing.
You've won more
Okay, I've won a lot of awards.
awards, so
I've won quite I mean, just for
yeah,
this
you
one book, The
have.
Reformatory, I've won so many awards. So I'm just thrilled that I'm still publishing after years, and thrilled for the opportunities that I've had to not only have work adapted, but also directing. Co-directing with Steve, the Keeper, with a major production company, with financing from Japan, so it's going to be on an international streamer. So all of this is just very exciting. And some of you may know us from our podcast, Life Writing Right for Your Life. It's on Realm Media, but find it wherever you podcast. Apple Podcasts is where most people go to watch it. So yeah, this is us. You have to do this part because in case you don't know who we are, in case you didn't know, now you know. I didn't mean
You
it
know,
to sound like
sweetheart,
that. Yes.
sweetheart, I don't see any reason not to give them the URL for your mailing list, just in
Oh,
case they're not
Tananarive
already on it.
list. Oh, if you're not on my mailing list, it's tananarivelist.com.
And I'm StephenBarnesList.com. We can put that into chat. We offer a tremendous amount of free service to people who are, we're about readers and writers. And
Yes.
whereas, we certainly have paid services, we also give away everything basic that you need. We used to be you. In some ways, we still are you.
Yeah.
So, join the
Yeah.
community. We're having a lot of fun over at www.liferight.com. It's
Social
a
media site.
private site, but it's free and
We're,
social media site. If you're getting
we're,
tired of
we're
Facebook.
throwing a lot of
So
URLs
let's
at you,
keep
but
going.
this is just all the ways you can keep in touch with us.
Yes, we
And I'm seeing a
are.
lot of familiar faces, but some of you I've never seen at our Life Writing Lives. We do every Friday. You can join us there by joining my list. I never see you on Circle, which is our social media site. So we'll put all that in chat. But let's talk about what to expect and why you should stay at the end, until the end.
So roughly, we're going to be talking about different
A
things like talent
lie.
is a lie.
It's not about goals.
It's not about the solitary genius myth.
Writing.
And then we're going to talk about writing horror
And
that
then if you stay to
kills.
the end, I should say when you stay to the end, you will hear an excerpt from Bear Creek Lodge. And I am very, very excited to share it with you. And I will give you a little teaser. It begins in Gracetown, Florida, which is the same town where the reformatory begins. And that's all I'm going to say. about that right now. So let's yeah, the way I
Oh,
am
look at
talking
that
about.
pretty girl. I cannot believe your mind. That's
That was
wow.
that
Seriously,
that's
that's
me all dolled
ridiculous.
up. Well, this is backstage when I was about to judge for Dragula, and you really have to bring it. You can't go out there on
Mhm.
Dragula looking any kind of way. So yeah, that is not surprisingly one of my better photographs. I was getting ready for Dragula. Anyway, horror and what it means, and I do want to make it a point that absolutely we are speaking to our horror creators and our horror lovers, but really a lot of what we're talking about will apply to all writers and all
Yeah,
writing.
some of what we're
But we
talking
want to
about
just,
will relate to any artist, any
yeah,
writer, any
yeah.
genre writer, and then of course any horror writer. But look at that base stuff, the core stuff. That's where it starts.
And I think a lot of people make the mistake. I mean, you see this a lot in bad horror movies, sometimes in novels as well, that people don't really understand what it is that makes horror successful.
I'm going to mute everybody, and then you unmute yourself too. Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Okay, so I'm unmuting myself. Let me go back to the previous card. So yes, why is Stephen King so successful? Is it because people are afraid of rabid dogs? No, it's not. So let's talk about what horror really is and why that matters.
Well, I
Um,
think that the first thought, horror is not gore, horror is not monsters, horror is not slashers. Those things can happen in horror movies, but what is the meaning of horror? What is the definition? T, you want to lay that on them?
well, first of all, and I mean, this is kind of simple, and you probably already know this without knowing you know it. Horror is just an emotion, right? And that's what makes this genre so special. Because whether it's science fiction, even a comedy, if the intent is to scare you, if the characters are scared, then it is horror. That is horror, where the main intent is to be frightening. And so you're like, well, if that's the main intent, why isn't it jump scares? Why isn't it gore? Because you cannot have that fright without this gentleman here in the middle. Yes, Daniel Kaluuya has to be in every single horror movie. No, it's about the frightened protagonist. We were just discussing this, in fact, with our development executive for the short film we're working on. It really is the protagonist and the protagonist's experiences, the protagonist's fears, even better if you can use the protagonist's fears as a window into your viewer or reader's universal fears. Now you're getting somewhere. Now you're getting into the meat of what horror is. You can have every jump scare in the world, but if your protagonist is a seasoned ghost hunter who's over it, who does not give a dang, all he's doing is like shooting every ghost that appears, that's an action movie. That's not a
Yeah,
horror movie.
you'd need for that character to die in by the end of Act One, while his apprentice now has to deal with the ghosts.
Now you're talking. His kid who hates this business, who thought his dad was crazy, and now he's the one who has to take over the ghost hunting. Now that's horror. People who, I mean, let's just be real. A lot of us, and this is not hyperbole, unfortunately, uh, to the degree that you read the news today, even if you're not trying to, you can see one thing on social media, one news story pops up. We are living in a horror movie, so many of us. Uncertainty, there's a lot of fear, children afraid to go to school, people afraid to keep their court dates. A big blanket of fear is over the country right now. Tariffs, how much can I keep my business open? Can I afford to buy a product from Canada? So, given that there is so much fear right now, and all of us are processing this fear, I'm telling you, I do not know what I would do if I didn't have my writing. I had a family emergency a couple weeks ago, and all I could do besides watching Survivor for the first time, or and Angry Birds and the stuff just to keep myself like centered, was pick up a novella that I'm supposed to be writing and try to immerse in these characters and literally take the thoughts of despair and grief that were in my own mind and put them in my protagonist's mind and find allegories and messages that help me feel better. Honestly, I write, I mean, I love y'all, but I write for me. Okay, I really do. I am my first and last reader. I can't wait till enough time has gone by that I can listen to the audiobook for the reformatory again when maybe I don't know what's on every page. But I write for myself. It is my therapy. It is my way of creating order from disorder and finding that core of what frightens me and then applying that to characters who are also frightened with the intent of creating fear in the reader or viewer. Baby, that is horror. And
Yeah,
the
I mean,
reason that,
just for
yeah,
any writer, or filmmaker for that matter, your thought should be when they close the book or walk out of the theater, what is the dominant emotion you want them to feel? Now, maybe you want them to feel triumph after a period of horror. I mean, there are a lot of horror movies that just end, they take you all the way there and they leave you there. But
hmm
asking yourself what emotion you want to create then gives you a guide, because every line, every scene, every image has to help create a cascade of emotional responses. So you're, once you've done your first draft, you're going back in and you're tuning and you just make sure. And a lot of this is just going to come from experience. You know, if you want people to feel excitement, if you want them to feel turned on, if you want them to feel this, if you want them to feel that, think about the emotions. Your words are ways to transfer emotions. Your scenes are about emotions. And in horror, the most important emotion to consider is fear. Let's
and
keep going.
along with that is the character who is experiencing that fear. And
That's
if
right.
there's one thing I think sort of like subpar, especially horror film directors and screenwriters get wrong, is that they are not character driven enough. They don't understand that we don't care about the barking dog. This is Cujo, by the way. We care about the people who are trapped by that rabid dog. And if they're real, we're in the car too and we're scared. And I will go on. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of these lies. Some of these lies that are holding back horror creators and all creators, frankly. And the first one is talent is a lie. That's right, I said it. Now, we're not saying that there is no such thing and talent doesn't exist out there, but the importance of talent, the emphasis on talent, is a complete bold-faced lie. And frankly, especially when it comes to like something like Hollywood, where it is very, very competitive, where the minute you walk into a meeting, someone is making some kind of a judgment call about whether you're the right person for the job based on your age, based on your weight, based on your ethnicity, based on your gender. In their minds, they're thinking they don't have the talent. When it's really not about that at all. It's like you are not fitting that picture of who you think there's or who they think you're supposed to be.
You know, in general, if I was to be asked, absolutely, do I believe that there are people who have more than others right out of the box? Yeah, I do think that. But it's a lot like height. Height doesn't make you a basketball player.
Right.
Practice makes you a basketball player. And if you look at all the people who are considered the greatest of all time, the uh, the highest scorers and stuff like that in any sport, by some odd coincidence, they also happen to put in more work. You will take a look at it. They work harder, longer hours than anybody else. So talent may exist, but I will tell you honestly, I have never seen the concept do any good to anyone. The only way I have ever seen people use the concept of talent is to explain why they didn't try or they quit. I didn't have the talent. That person had talent. Look, well, we're going to talk specifically about what you can do. I believe that the primary talent is the capacity to focus on a particular task under mentorship until, you know, along a valid path, in other words, until you've done it. Outlasting everybody else is enough, you know, and so and the key to being able to outlast other people is you must love what you do. You have to be
And
able
you
to
have
do
to
it for its own sake.
and you have to believe. You have to have that faith. I mean, I could have been a young reporter just so crushed, by looking at a veteran reporter who had my dream and gave up on it and said, oh, that's my path, I guess. I guess I'm an idiot. I guess you can't really be a novelist if you're working as a journalist. I could have decided that. Instead, it made me defiant. I was like, oh, yeah? Well, I'm not going to used to want to be a writer. I'm going to be a writer. I didn't say this, but I was thinking this in my head. You know, when I was an undergraduate at Northwestern University, which I'll talk about a little bit later too, there were several, at least one or maybe more students I thought were way better writers than I was at that age, 18, 19 years old. I mean, you know, you have very little life experience and what do you even write about? So I was kind of fumbling around and I thought they sounded mature. I loved the way they put their words together. And I looked and I looked and I looked in years to come for their name, for their books, for what are they going to do. And it seems that they gave it up. It seems that they gave up writing. So that idea of talent, in fact, Steve, you have an example about this from when you were in school, don't you?
Yeah, there was a guy in school who was the darling of the writing class. And you know, he would write stories about guys who go to junkyards and find pieces of motorcycles and put them together in an odd new way to create some bike that nobody's ever seen. And then, you know, he will ride that bicycle up to the top of the town and sit on the mountaintop and look down on the town and think about his life. And with beautiful prose. I would write stories about the amoeba that ate that town. So it was the teacher, he was the teacher's pet. And they were a little bit nasty about the kind of things that I wanted to write, and it hurt, you know.
Genre
But then
bias
one
is real.
day, somebody criticized his work, and he couldn't handle it. And I said to myself, "Isn't that interesting? I'm going to make it," and he isn't, because he could not handle the pain. So I suggest everybody listening to this, you can say all you want to about how you have a career, you have this, you have that. I think everybody on this wants to publish at least one story. At least one story. Publish it, get paid for it. And that much we can help you get to. We can help you get to that point. Can you have a successful novelist career? Can you be award winning and best selling and so forth? Those are higher levels and different questions. But in terms of getting into the game, you can get into the game.
So, so don't believe the lies you're telling yourself about talent, whether you have it or don't. Don't believe the lies of gatekeepers, like if you met an editor or an agent and they seem kind of dismissive because you don't look like you have talent or whatever. Believing in talent to get you through harms writers, harms artists, and it really does help gatekeepers put up barriers because we're believing we don't have talent just like they believe we don't have talent. So let's look at a case study. Now, of
Yeah,
course,
make
we
no
would all say
mistake,
probably
not everyone wants you to succeed.
true, true. So Jordan Peele, and don't y'all go around telling Jordan Peele I said he's untalented. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying it was not talent that got Get Out made or that made Get Out the breakout hit and the first black uh, screenwriter to win Best Original Screenplay. He wrote draft after draft. He spent years working on Get Out. Okay. Now, some of you may have worked on stories or scripts where, you know, you give it one shot, 2, 3 months, 6 months, and you're in, you're out. It didn't work. You put it in a drawer. He did not do that. And as he told us in a Skype, if I can date the interaction to presume, he Skyped into our Black horror class and said that his original draft wasn't even about race. And that blows my mind. But it's similar to what M. Night Shyamalan says. According to what I've read about him, his first drafts of The Sixth Sense had nothing to do with the therapist being a ghost. Sorry for the spoiler, but come on, y'all, it's been out forever. So what we look at is the finished product. We're not looking at all of the work and sweat and misdirection that went into his original vision, which, as I understand it, it was more about being the odd person out. Like everybody else is at a college reunion, they all know each other. You're a plus one, you're on the outside of the circle. When he started writing Get Out, he did not realize that that outsider status he was talking about had to do with race. He did not even realize that he thought of racism as systemic and not individual, like individual bigotry as opposed to racist systems, right? He didn't realize that. And then by the time he gets to his final drafts of Get Out and he's writing about the sunken place, to him, he's writing about mass incarceration. The guy who's about individual bigotry is looking at a system that is racist and unpacking that through the sunken place. So, I mean, I could talk forever about this, but just know that Jordan Peele did not write that script as we know it right out of the gate. In fact, quite famously, he had to reshoot the ending. He had to do pickups, honey. He had to do pickups. They had to reshoot that ending because it
Yep.
wasn't testing well with audiences. With Chris being in jail, who wants to see that? They wanted Rod to come and rescue him. So he had to do reshoots, all kinds of like work and false starts. But the industry wasn't looking for Get Out. No one was saying, "Oh, where's that big blockbuster movie about cultural appropriation and the appropriation of black bodies?" He created that. Once he figured out several drafts in what his movie was about, he created something the industry didn't even know it wanted, completely out of vision and determination.
You know, one thing to say that if you're writing a piece of work that comes deep from your own pain, and we suggest that you do that, um, then you, to the degree that the outside world has been responsible for some of that, that if your pain is partially about social things, in other words, there are groups, there are demographics that have caused you pain. If the people you would have to go to sell your work are members of the same demographic that caused you pain, whether it's black, white, male, female, gay, straight, there are all sorts of things, poor, rich, for that matter, you will have to be extra sly. You'll have to be extra good because remember, if they're a member of that group, they might very well be looking for a way to say no rather than looking for the next big thing. You're going, that's just being realistic. That's not being negative. It's not being pessimistic. It's saying, in order for me to get there, it's going to require me to take an extra step. How do I find the people who might be inclined to publish me? And in fiction writing, it would be find the editors who publish something that's similar to what you want to do. Reach out to those editors. They are potential allies. Same thing's going to be true in Hollywood. Who has made something similar to what it is you want to do? Focus on those people.
Another case study, Joe Hill, who happened to be a guest on our Life Writing podcast. So if you check out our podcast at lifewritingpodcast.com, search for Joe Hill, his name will come up. It's episode 112. It was a great conversation. And I think it's also very relevant in this conversation about talent. Because think about this. Now, I'm sure most of you know by now, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King, right? They appeared together in Scare Up the Vote, which was the event I helped organize back in November. Anyway, as the son of Stephen King, as you would imagine, he had the best horror writing teacher in the world. So
Yeah, can you even imagine the dinner table conversations in that house? Holy crap.
his brother
But
Owen King is also a writer. Yeah.
just to see your dad go to his office every day and work demystifies the entire process. Oh, it's not, novels don't spring full born from the brow of Zeus. Their work. It's hard, and once you understand that, then you can say, am I willing to pay that price? And if you're willing to pay that price, then you start paying it. But otherwise, you have the right to say, looks like too much work, and do something else,
No,
which leaves the field more open for those of us who can't quit.
right. So I had heard this. I mean, a lot of writers already knew this. You've probably heard this yourselves. And that the story is that he did not want to depend on his King name. He wanted to make it on his own merits. And I was actually quite surprised when he came on our podcast, when he talked about how many novels he had rejected before he finally sold one. He had a lot of rejection. So he wasn't out there thinking, oh, I'm so super talented. The world is just going to part from me. He really had to plug away and plug away. And I would make the argument, and his book coming out, I think it's in October, called King's Sorrow, which I got to read an advanced copy of and blurb for him. I believe it may be his best novel. I asked him, do you think this is your best novel? And he thinks it may be his best novel. So he's continuing to grow and continuing to improve, and that is hard work and perseverance. That is not talent. If it was talent, he would have like just come out the box publishing those books. But he had to do the same journey that I had to do, that Steve had to do. In fact, he had more novels rejected than I did, to be honest. I was just very lucky when I came along in the 90s. Publishers were looking for what I was writing, but he had to really do that on his own. And Steve and I just had this, we're in the middle of it really, but we were having a great experience co-directing our first short film. It's a film for a major production company. It already has a home on a streamer. We just got to finish it. And this to me was such an eye-opening lesson about what talent is and what talent isn't. Some of you have heard us talking about this on our podcast. Some of you have heard us, in the Friday Zooms and in Circle. And I apologize if it's new, not new, but I think I had put directors, and I still do, I'd still put directors on such a pedestal. My favorite directors, like an Ava DuVernay. I mean, there are so many, Jordan Peele, so many directors, Ryan Coogler, that I greatly admire. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm just like them because I just started, right? We're literally in the middle of directing our first film. But I can see now that the gap between where they are and where we are is not an impossible chasm just because they have the talent. It's about learning how to.
birthday.
Whoops, someone is not muted.
I'm gonna mute them
Yeah,
again,
mute up.
and then you unmute yourself.
So it's and again, we're not saying that these people aren't talented, but what we're saying is that it's not talent that gets a movie made. It is such a mountain
Yeah,
to
I think
climb.
that for the sake of your sanity, assume that talent and skill are the same things, and that skill can be developed. What you're looking for is to have people say of you, that person is very talented, because they don't see all the work you put in.
Yeah,
Icebergs are 7/10 underwater.
absolutely. So what I learned on the set is that, oh, these are skills. And I don't know much about this yet. I've never directed an actor, but next time I direct an actor, I'll be much more experienced doing that. And maybe it's hard to keep track of the order of the scenes. They're all shuffled out of order. What are we doing next? Well, guess what? Day after day, I got better and better at getting ahead of the order and figuring out how to block the scenes and how to coordinate better with all those talented artists and craftspeople who are on that set. So, yeah, I mean, I think our movie is going to be fantastic, but I don't think it'll be because we're so talented at being directors. I
No,
mean, we just
the very
started.
first lesson that we got that was like a really critical lesson was somebody said the only way to compensate for lack of experience is pre-planning and getting a really great assistant director, and actually director of photography.
Yes,
This turned out to be so true.
so true.
Relate this to what Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, that the only known way to compensate for a lack of ability is the mastermind. So if in a movie you want to surround yourself with the best and most professional people, how does that relate to just writing? Well, you want the best teachers. You want the best people in your writing circle. You want to read the work of the masters. You want to have editors who will not play games with you, will actually both show you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. That you want to create this, you assume that it's going to take a tribe to get you across the Rubicon, that you're going to need help in there, that to educe from you. It's like the great writers, they talk about Hemingway and his correspondences with Fitzgerald, and Lovecraft with his correspondences with Robert E. Howard and things like this. Don't try to do it alone. Go to conventions, go to places where you can meet writers, buy them drinks, buy them dinner. A lot of them are broke. And develop friendships, honest friendships, where you are genuinely offering them your concern and your friendship, and you will spark with somebody because you'll hit them at the right time and place, and you'll say the right thing about some work of theirs that they like. Be sure that you're being honest with them. I always assume that people can read your mind. It's best for you to be as honest as possible. That you're looking to develop your tribe, and that will be the group of writers that are moving up with you, the group of writers above you that are offering you advice, and eventually one day the younger writers who will come to you and ask you questions. Remember, you're going to owe. Other people helped you, you help other people.
Even here in chat, this is a place to meet writers. Like some people are so isolated and they're like, oh, I can't meet any other writers. Well, guess what? They're writers in chat. And just by sharing your spontaneous responses to what we're saying when people like it, or, you never know. You never know where you're going to spark up some kind of a connection with people. So don't forget about here and now. Let me get back to sharing. And again, I don't want to share the wrong thing. Okay, so we talked about directing the movie. It's going to load up. Just give me a second. The next slide. Part two, it's not about goals. Oh my God, we're always talking about this. What are your goals? Do you have your goals? Write down your goals. Your New Year's resolutions, those are just your goals. Why you're writing goals are falling short. We're not in love with goals. The critical difference between goals and actions, and the critical difference, even more importantly, between goals and
The
plans.
difference
Or
between
as
goals, see, I love goals. I've always loved goals. But the thing that people can miss is that once you have a goal, you need to define the process that will take you to that goal within 1, 10, 100, or 1,000 days. If you want to write a book in a year, then you ask yourself, what would I need to do in order to do that? And then every day you check your progress on that. And understand that if you can trust yourself to keep your word, you will outperform people who are smarter than you, who cannot keep their word. You want every nasty, unfair advantage you have because it's going to be tough. Just get it through your head. So one of the things you want to do is to become tough emotionally. And you can test that every day by defining the process. I get up at this time. I read this when I'm traveling to work. I listen to books on tape. I write at least one sentence a day. We'll get back to that every day. And you look for the lies you tell yourself. You look for all the excuses you come up with for why you didn't do it. And I'd say journal them because your unconscious mind has a limited number of excuses to stop you. And once you start coming up with the same excuse over and over again, some part of you will get sick of it. That that paying attention to how you stop yourself from reading, how you stop yourself from writing, how you stop yourself from submitting, how you stop yourself from networking. Define the things you need to get there and then
I
slowly
didn't mean to
start
jump to
doing
the
it.
next slide, but this is a good time. I was I was trying to expand so I could
Absolutely.
see people's faces. So I'd like to preach a sermon on the reformatory. I had a goal that I wanted to write a novel inspired by the life and unfortunately the death of my great uncle, Robert Stevens, and someone I never heard of, but who I found out was buried on the grounds of the Dozier School for Boys in Marianna, Florida. Quickly realized I didn't want to write it as nonfiction because that story is no fun. But if I could write it as a novel, I could hopefully help people remember the name Robert Stevens, pay honor to the fact that so many children did suffer and die there, but also create something that was fantasy based, has ghosts in it, which lightens it a little bit. I mean, I had a goal, but I did not have a plan. And as a result of that, it took me longer to write the reformatory than anything I've ever written. It took 7, maybe even more than 7 years to write it because it was always in the back of my head. And I'm a disciplined writer, people. I mean, I came up as a journalist. I think the first problem is I didn't have a deadline. That's something I learned. I need a deadline. I had no deadline when I was working on the reformatory. We decided, my agent and I, that I would write it as a spec novel on speculation and then sell it once it was finished. And that turned into 7 years. It wasn't until right as COVID was hitting. I misremember this story, Steve. I misremember this as COVID coming first, but I can look at my chart and see pandemic. I had already started my chart when the pandemic hit. But this was a chart with a writing quota. Now, this is a lot of pages. Maybe this is a lot of pages for you all, but for me, I was so sick of working on this book and not finishing it that I had a page quota of 5 to 7 pages a day. I made out a plan, 5 to 7 pages a day. And not only that, I had a chart I put up on my wall so I could see how many of those pages I actually wrote. So you can, I mean, it's not pretty, but you can sort of see what I did here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yes, I have 7 days a week. You can see which days I did no writing because there's a slash or a zero. I can't hide from the slash. I can't hide from the zero. Either I wrote or I didn't. So Wednesday I did 4 pages. Thursday I did 3 pages. R is for revision, which, I count it, but not the same way. So I could see in front of me every single day what my progress was, where I was falling behind. I gave myself smiley faces if I hit my quota. I noticed it wasn't that often. It wasn't. Look at how many times I didn't write 5 pages. But I finished it. That was the point. That chart, and I do have to give Steve credit because it was his idea that I do it. He heard me moaning about how I wasn't making progress, how I didn't think I was going to finish it. Oh my gosh, Colson Whitehead has the Nickel Boys is already going to come out, set at the same reformatory I based mine on, and he beat me, and I've been working on it for years. I mean, all this frustration. My dad's getting older. I named the character John Dorsey after my father, John Dorsey Dew. He's getting older. I don't want him to pass away I had so many reasons to create a plan. And that plan led me to daily or mostly daily action. And that is where you can improve upon the notion of goals. Goals can be like sort of a vague, I want to write a book. Okay, that was my goal, to write a book. But I gave myself no tools within that goal to complete
Yeah,
the
I mean,
book.
look, if you do research into goals, even just that thing, the idea of SMART, the acronym SMART, SMART, specific, meaningful, actionable, realistic, and time bound, is one way of looking at that. But one of the things about this schedule is that if you do this in your life, if you find a nice, simple way, you keep a journal and you keep track of what you do every day and your progress towards your goals, you not only will motivate yourself to do more work, but you'll start understanding how habit patterns influence your productivity. You'll say, I didn't get much done this day, and you realize 2 days before that I had a horrible argument. 2 days before that I was feeling sick. This day I ate ice cream. I did this, I did this. You literally start keeping track of what you eat, how you sleep, what you're doing. Over time, you'll start getting a sense of how you need to prepare. you know, if you know you have a big meeting coming up in 2 days, what do you do to set yourself up for it? Maybe you avoid simple carbohydrates and you're eating protein, or maybe you're reading, books on communication before that. But when you have a great day, look at your schedule and ask, what did I do? How did I set myself up for that? And when you have a bad day, pay attention to that too.
Hey, listen, for some of you, it might be watching the news, right? Because it's such a quandary. You don't want to unplug from the world and just say, oop, I guess that's their problem until it knocks on your door. But at the same time, you might find that watching the news triggers you, makes it hard to sleep. So how do you fix that? Well, finding a non-triggering ways to, like, for instance, if you can afford it, setting up regular donations to the causes you care about that you know are under fire. You know they're under fire. You don't have to see all the different ways they're under fire every day, but you can contribute to help fight it, or maybe like there might be different versions of being engaged that don't include, certainly not 24-hour news, which is mostly just rehash and speculation and people who say things intentionally to upset other people, right? So just know what you need to do to get your mind right to make your goals into plans and actions. Steve, what's the
Look, this
example
is
of your
this is
writing?
the writing plan that we use in life writing, and it has never failed a single student. One, write a sentence every day. You just commit to writing one sentence a day. Now, I don't want you feeling guilty if you literally were in a fugue state all day long and could not come out of it. But it's critical to understand that if you don't have time and energy to write a single sentence, there's something that's very wrong. And so you want to fix that, or you want to acknowledge that. Two, write 1 to 4 short stories a month. Now, this is set up for people who want to be novelists, okay, who want to get there by writing short work before they do longer work. If you're creative and you're smart, you'll figure out how this can apply to writing nonfiction or making movies. Just take the same creativity that you use writing your movie and figure out, well, what What is the meaning of this step? Why does it work? How would I adapt it? Number 3, finish and submit at least one piece of work, one story every month. Okay, that means that a story could be 1 page long.
That's great.
Anybody, if you can't write a 1 page story in a month, you don't. There's something really going on, and that's what you should be discussing with your friends or your counselor. Why? What's the fear that's stopping me? Once again, no shame about it. Just like be a scientist, observe what's going on. I stopped myself here. I stopped myself here. What happened? 4, don't rewrite once you finish your story. Don't rewrite it except to editorial request. Do not go back and keep writing that story. You will learn more by moving on to your next story. However, there's one exception. If an editor reaches out to you and says, we like this story. If you change this thing about it, we'd like to see it again. That is exactly the feedback you're looking for. That's exactly the feedback that you're looking for. In that case, drop what you're doing, rewrite that story. Because if you're not published yet, your attitude should be, I will do whatever it takes to get published that first time. 5, read 10 times as much as you write. This is critical. There's nothing that is sadder than a writer who says, I don't have time to read. That it's like an athlete who says, I don't have time to eat. They're destroying themselves. And this is both input for the quality of your work, and it's marketing research. Who publishes the kind of stuff that you want to read, you want to write? Hopefully it's similar to what you're reading, so that by reading you're learning about the market. Who are the names? Who are the publishing companies? Who are the editors, et cetera, et cetera. And the 6th step is repeat this process 1 through 5 at least 100 times. You make a commitment that you're going to write 100 stories and have them all out there before you even begin to ask whether you can do it. So far, not a single student who has followed this process has made it past story 26. But part of what they had to do was to give them, and most of them, an amazing amount of them, especially if you have good mentors and a good circle of other people, they'll publish within 10 stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it's amazing to watch what happens once you start removing your obstacles. If you are the kind of person who is not willing to write 100 stories to get published, you may not be a writer. But if you're willing to write 100 stories to get published, you're my kind of people, and we will support you. We want nothing other than your success.
So part 3, the myth of the solitary genius. The thing that's so funny, and I'm going to stop the share here for a second, is that, writers are not necessarily the most social people. I mean, part of the fun of being a writer is like the door is closed, it's kind of quiet, you can sink into your mind. Of course, writers are often solitary. So it's kind of unfair and ironic that the thing that we need to do to grow as writers is find community. And that community can take many different forms, but it really is a myth that a writer flowers as a solitary genius. Why do you think people have writers groups? Why do you think people go to get MFAs? Yes, it's a teaching credential, but when I'm teaching in an MFA program, I tell people what you're really paying for is this cohort of other writers that you will have for life if you take advantage of it, that you can exchange stories with. And if you're not doing that, you have not gotten the most of that money you spent. That teaching credential is not worth all that money. But having the cohort is worth all that money. So my community has looked a lot of different ways as a writer. I actually did make a slide, so I'll put it back up. Oops. I had, first of all, my mom was my first community. Really my dad too, but mostly I'm going to shout out mom, because every year for my birthday, she gave me what was called Writer's Market. They may still have it. It was just like a hardcover book as big as 2 bricks. Y'all, who remembers Writer's Market? I know I'm not the only one in Gen X here. So Writer's Market, she would give me that every birthday with a very sweet inscription. And that really helped me to research the markets, make submission plans. I mean, full disclosure, I never sold anything out of Writer's Market because it was going to be many years before I would sell anything. But it set me on my way. It helped me adopt a writer's mindset about how to tackle the submission aspect of writing, which is very, very important. A lot of people get hung up there because they're scared of rejection. So for me to basically embrace, okay, this is going to be these are the places. I mean, I was sending them out kind of recklessly to like look back at some of those rejection slips, and I'm like, why did I send Ishmael Reed a story for his Black anthology that was about white characters? Why did I do that? But anyway, I didn't even know who Ismail Reed was at the time. Anyway, so the point is, but my mother was a part of that community. In elementary school, my teachers used to let me read stories in front of the class. So they were giving me that reinforcement from a very young age. I took a community college level writing class when I was still in high school. And then by the time I got to college, I was very lucky that Northwestern had a creative writing double major. So we had MFA style workshops, Clarion style workshops as undergraduates, which is a lot more common now, you know. And then I taught in an MFA program. Now, this is interesting because there's no faster way to learn than by teaching. And I'm including that in my community circle because my fellow faculty, guest speakers really became a part of my community for growth. Once I started teaching screenwriting, my screenwriting abilities took a leap because I was learning how to embrace what I was teaching in a more solid way. And then of course I gotta shout out. He should have been first. Steve, my reader, my booster, my taskmaster, the other voice in my head, the other lobe in my brain. I have dedicated my next book, Bear Creek Lodge, to Steve because his DNA, his input, his thoughts are all over this book. So he is definitely a part of my community, and we've been married for 27 years. So that's been for a long time. I've had a lot of growth and collaborations. We've literally collaborated. So Steve, love you, baby.
Love you too, sweetheart. And your DNA is all over my new book, Sigil. So, oh, what's this? What do we have here?
Ah,
There's a vintage picture for you.
three robes.
Yeah, this is back when major threshold in my writing career was having an opportunity to work with Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. That much more than the book that we wrote together, what I learned in their company, because these were two people at the absolute top of their game, and I found out that if I ran at top speed, I could keep up with them if they were strolling. They were just kind of doing their thing. And I was, imagine a couple of St. Bernards strolling along and a puppy running at top speed trying to keep up with them. That was me. And there were times when I would drive home crying, tears streaming down my face, because Jerry especially could be an abrasive presence. He loved to poke at you from the position of being a teacher. And I knew that if I quit, if I let the pain stop me, I would never be the writer I could be, but that if I could survive, I would learn things that you could not learn in any school. So yeah, Jerry and I fought, just like that picture kind of suggests, but God, I loved him. I loved them both, and Jerry's gone now. So Larry is a personal angel of mine. I love working with him and being with him. And I remember what they gave to me, and we try very hard to give back to others because of that.
That's great. So what would it take, y'all, to change your writing life? Now, these are some of the passages that we've been through.
Yeah, and you figure the most important thing you can have is honesty. The three gates: is it true, is it kind, is it useful? If you can take an honest assessment of where you are, and then listen to people like us or your favorite writers, read articles about them, and say that this is where they are, this is where they were when they first published. There's going to be a gap between where you are and where they are. And your task is to divide that into, let's say, you might not be more than 3 months away from publication. So it'd be making 100-day goal of getting there. You might think that you're 3 years away from publication, in which case it's 1,000-day goal. But you need the resources, internal and external. You need to have a real sense of what your goal is, where you want to be, and what the program would be that would get you there. If you've got that, then you're prepared to hear what we're going to say.
And remember to stay to the end because I can't wait to share this excerpt from Bear Creek Lodge with you. But before I do that, I want to talk about our next course. Someone said in chat, have you seen their courses? Well, this is one, and it's upcoming. Our last live course of 2025 is on writing horror. Dark Dreams, writing horror that kills. We could have said that slays. I think that was also a very good title.
Yeah, I thought about that.
It'll be both virtual, just like this, or live in a classroom in Southern California. It's 3 hours. This is a brief talk we're giving you. This is the tip of the iceberg, but it will be 3 hours of world-class instruction on writing powerful horror with Q&A. And frankly, it's worth $500. The URL is here, fearmasters.com, but I'm going to tell you more about it before I even expect you to click on that or even look into it. In addition to that, this is something I'm very proud of, and we have some members of our workshop here today. I saw their names. We've started a new workshop called Life Writing Professional. In fact, Steve, we have 2 stories we're workshopping Saturday. We have to remember to read them.
That's great. I have to remember to
Do
read
the
those.
feedback. Yeah, we got to read them.
Love
So this is the first time that Steve and I personally have offered a workshop. I've taught at Clarion. He's taught at many workshops. I taught in an MFA program. We have never had a workshop that we ran until now, and it's called Life Writing Professional. And if you look at what it costs to go to a Clarion, or if you look at what it costs to get an MFA, we can't give you that teaching credential, but we can give you that cohort, and we can give you that instruction and that feedback that you would be paying $1,500 a month. It's bi-weekly Zoom workshops. We're do at least 1 story every workshop, sometimes 2, like Saturday we're doing 2. Coaching on coaching. By participating in the workshop, you learn how to coach other writers.
And the Life Writing Professional Workshop is basically available only to people who've been through one of our classes. But once you're in, you're in. There's no monthly charge. We're going to work very, very hard to keep it that way because we love being around writers.
Honestly, when we first started offering this workshop with our courses, it was only going to be 2 free months in the workshop. That's what we said in on the ad. You get 2 free months of Life Writing Professional, and then we realized we can't kick people out after 2 months. So it's just an ongoing workshop. It's a part you get. You could be in it who knows how long, and that kind of value, that would be worth $1,500 a month. And for that low price, for one low price, that's not a low price. For one low price, you can learn how to write horror that haunts readers and sells, like the reformatory, ditch the talent myth for real skills, and join a community of writers. That is the beautiful part, who lift each other up. And like I said, the 3-hour masterclass by itself is worth $500. In fact, we're about to raise the price to $500. The Life Writing Professional Workshop is free, but that by itself will be worth $1,500. So this is $2,000 value. I'm just going to call it that we are offering for $297.
Until Friday.
$200.
This
just until
price
Friday.
will only exist for the next 48 hours. Then it is going away. All of our financial advisors, the people who we're studying to create the infrastructure of a business that then will allow us to eventually give the middle finger to Hollywood so that we can write the stuff that we want to write. So it's, we're playing chess here. We're trying to figure out how do we move these pieces around to do this. And one of the things we figure is that if we provide the best lessons, the best learning environment at the fairest price, we can do it. But we're going to have to raise that price $200. People are laughing at us when we tell them how much we're charging.
And I'm not saying that 297, for some people, obviously that can be a lot, but it is undercharging. It is, and we have been consistently undercharging for our courses when we compare to what other people are charging. So we're like, okay, we're going to raise our price to $497 on Friday, but if you buy it in the next 2 days, you get all of that. You get the 3-hour workshop, including the replay if for some reason you miss it or you want to watch it again, and your ongoing membership in Life Writing Professional, all for $297 if you get it before midnight Friday, and that's at fearmasters.com. That's where you can sign up, save your spot at fearmasters.com. And we don't expect you just to sit there and make a decision right this second. We're hoping what you'll do is you'll ask us some questions about the course. We have a lovely classroom we're scoping out. We're expecting more students in this class than we have in the previous one, so we're getting a bigger space and hopefully some food. We talked about catering last time and never got around to it, but I think this time we will have food. Some
We
of
did
you
have snacks. We had
we did have
snacks.
snacks. We had snacks. So if you're food motivated, come for the food alone. If you're if you're in Southern California and you just want to meet us, but you're also a writer, what a perfect opportunity to come in the space. And really, the ongoing workshop, the camaraderie that has emerged from that, the stories we are reading, people are submitting, they're getting feedback. It's all great, and it's
People
all
are
happening.
not just submitting and getting feedback, people are selling. They're
Yeah, they are.
publishing, like I said. And as we keep going forward, that group will grow, and the people who are selling will start becoming our first level of teachers to run the little groups themselves. Right now, we're running everything personally, but we're looking for people who are committed to helping writers, horror writers, genre writers, marginalized writers. And so what we love is people who have the teaching bug.
And I don't see any hands up, but I'll go ahead and answer some questions in advance. What are we teaching in the workshop? I'm glad you asked. Back to our original point about what horror really is. Yes, we are going to talk about how to create a scary premise in a story. Absolutely, I cannot wait to talk about that. But characterization is also a big part of this workshop. We will have breakdowns of some of your favorite horror films, maybe even books. We like to use films because more people tend to have seen films in common.
We will
But we,
work on world building, creating your mythology, creating monsters that don't feel like men in suits, but feel like
yes,
creatures, things from elsewhere, or animals that actually have their own motivations, even if we don't totally understand those motivations. Horror is what you don't see. It's
right.
doing a deep dive into the horror that has shaped our culture, being able to have time to answer questions, and that our commitment is to writers who actually want to do this,
Strong date.
writers who actually want to get to the other side of this, so that this is an investment in
Yeah,
your
I'm
time.
just
And I will
taking
tell
down the
you that if
slide.
you go through the 3 hours and you do not feel it's the best 3 hours you ever spent, I am happy to refund your money. I'm happy to refund your money
Sure.
because we give everything we've got to this. We are not playing games about this. And I hope that you can tell just from what we're willing to give for free. You should ask yourself the question, for God's sake, if they're giving this for free, what the hell, what happens when they're actually making an energetic exchange? Go ahead, sweetheart.
I had to, I had, I had to change the date. I had the wrong date on there. It's September 13th. That is a Saturday. And again, if you can't make the whole thing or you're worried you might miss it, you will get the replay, you will get the Google Slides, and you will get the ongoing membership in Life Writing Professional as a part of that. In addition to just having a great time. We're even
Yep.
going to start bringing in guest speakers for Life Writing Professional. We haven't done that yet. We have a few people we've thought about, never quite made it happen yet. But that is going to be an ongoing and dynamic force in your life. It's the kind of thing, honestly, I wish I had had when I was out of college and
Yeah.
in the working
Anything,
world.
sweetheart, anything I teach is a message in a bottle back to my 15-year-old self, my 25-year-old self, trying to, how could I have saved him time?
Mm,
Just with what we've just learned in Hollywood right now, man, oh man, do we have some knowledge that would have saved us time and tears. It's,
and,
uh,
and and when
but if we give it to other people, it's almost as good as giving it to your younger
That's
self.
true. And I was thinking about something when you talked about world building. This is the kind of conversation Steve and I have, and that we would be having with you during this workshop. I have a creature. It's no secret that Bear Creek Lodge is a creature story. If you saw the World Fantasy Award winning short story Incident at Bear Creek Lodge, you get a little glimpse at the creature. But trust me when I say you'll be seeing a lot more of the creature in the novel Bear Creek Lodge. And when I was just at the very beginning of writing it, I was trying to figure out if it was a biological creature or if it was a magical creature. Part of me wanted to try to create it as a biological creature, or like sort of play with that sort of science fiction aspect. Science fiction can also be horror, as you know. But in talking to Steve, who is more of a science fiction writer, I decided, you know what, I think it's just magic. I think my creature is conjured and it's magic, and that just gives me more freedom. And what's the difference? These kinds of questions, like how to approach your demonology, your creature building. These are the kinds of things, like you want it to make even if it's magical and it's conjured, it has to make sense. It can't just do whatever because you want it. It has to have limitations. Your characters can't just be sort of completely helpless. There has to be usually you want them to be able to do something, right? So these are the kinds of things you want to think about when you're writing horror. And we can't wait to unpack it for you, especially on the heels of The Reformatory, which is the most successful book I've ever written. I hope I can like tap into that again with Bear Creek Lodge. But yeah, writing horror that kills, dark dreams, www.fearmasters.com. If you think you even might want to buy it, be sure you do it as soon as possible because you don't want to forget that that price is going up $200 to $497
Okay,
on
Stephanie
Friday
asked, do you
at midnight.
give feedback in Life Writing Pro on novel excerpts, or is it just complete short stories? And I will say that we absolutely recommend that you start with short stories until you've published several of them. That is, in fact, one of the major errors that newbies make. It's like trying to run a marathon when you've never run around the block.
Well,
Uh,
Stephanie, have you published short stories? Because
I have not published short stories. I am published in nonfiction, and I currently have an agent who wants to see the full of my novel. So I
uh,
just tend more toward novel than I struggle a little bit more with the short fiction format.
Yeah,
But I hear what you're
everybody
saying
does.
about
Everybody.
genre.
How, but as I said there, you will be able to find writing partners, and if you offer to read their material, they will read yours.
and I
So,
would say, I published a short story excerpt from the Reformatory, like literally excerpted from the book. I didn't write a short story based in the world of the Reformatory. I took a chapter, I took out stuff people didn't need to know, and it was an arced scene that functioned as a short story. So I think that could be a workaround for you. If you have a piece of it that is arced enough that it is pretty much standalone, then absolutely we could workshop that, I would say. And also in that situation, you might want to include a paragraph about what happened before or what will happen after. So thank you for that question, Stephanie. Does anybody else have a question about the course, about us?
I have a question.
oh,
On the
great.
hi. I on your podcast, you were talking about the course that you recently taught Tananarive, and you said George R. R. Martin dropped in and made this point about pantsers versus plotters, and
Yes.
and just like what that difference is, and how that contributes to, I guess, like writing longevity. What kinds of things do you do in the course to discuss that? Because,
That is a great question.
yeah.
Just if I can
Okay, so
recap, if you haven't heard the podcast, what did you
yeah,
want to say?
recap, and then I'll make a comment.
Right. I taught at the George R. R. Martin Summer Writing Intensive at Northwestern University, which is an endowed program from him to help journalists transition to being novelists. And for the first time, it's only the second year, but for the first time, he zoomed in and he talked about the difference between pantsers and plotters. And pantsers are people who write by the seat of their pants. They don't plan ahead. They open up that computer and just whatever comes out, comes out. And then they worry about fixing it, organizing it. Maybe this chapter goes here. You do that later. And that is how they access story. And then there are plotters. Plotters are people who write outlines, people who plan their stories. I have been both. I will pants my way somewhat through a short story, but for a novel, I always outline. Because in fact, I sold Bear Creek Lodge based on an outline. Okay,
So,
based on
look,
an outline.
a pantser is someone who has all the skills, a successful pantser is someone who has all the skills of plotting and unconscious competence. They don't have to think about it any more than you think about riding a bicycle. But when you started riding a bicycle, you had to learn the different pieces. So I think that the best situation is to have all the tools you need to be a plotter. But when you sit down, as Ray Bradbury says, Just start writing and have fun. If you run into trouble, then you open your toolbox. But the most fun in writing is when you're not aware that you're writing. It's just happening. It's just you're doing it. So our goal is to get you to that point, but we are going to teach you the tools that you need to get there. And
Yes.
if you're a pantser, these tools will be vital when you get blocked, when you don't know how to make something improve. I have known fine writers, professional writers, award-winning writers who were pantsers, but when they ran into blocks, it literally destroyed their careers.
And unless I'm
They didn't know
mistaken,
how to fix it.
right, unless I'm mistaken, George R. R. Martin considers himself a pantser. So it was very interesting that what he said during the workshop was that as he looked at aging writers, that people who were plotters tended to repeat the same stories over and over again, but that people who were pantsers had stopped writing. So I don't know. It was just something he was taking like, interesting. And in terms of what Steve said, absolutely. We're not saying you must outline, although we kind of do. But what we really will do is teach you the tools to learn how to do it. Hey, it is such a useful skill to have. If you have any thought about working for television or film, it is nearly impossible to thrive in that business without knowing how to summarize the story you're going to write. When we wrote our Twilight Zone episode, a page and a half summary was worth tens of thousands of dollars. I have sold two novels, probably more, based on outlines. So it's not just that it's a good idea to know how to do it, or it might help me stay on track, which is all these things are true. And also, you can show someone an outline and they can read it in, like, 10 minutes, as
Well,
opposed to, hey, read my book.
being able to pitch a story is about being able to boil a story down to 1 to 3 pages. So if you're at a convention and you're in an elevator with an editor and you strike up things and they ask you, so what are you working on? You can come up with a paragraph to say it. I have had people, I did that once at a convention, and an editor tried to buy the book from me by creating a contract on the back of a cocktail napkin. Now, I was hungry and I wanted it, but I also knew that a hungry writer should not negotiate their own contracts. So I got to say something that I'd waited my whole life to say, which was, I'll have my people call your people. That was so much fun. But it all came from being able, can you boil down what you're doing to just a few sentences, a paragraph, a page, 3 pages? A
30
person who
pages.
can do that really knows their story.
And we
So
would
understanding your story inside out, upside down, that's what we want for you.
And we would love to help to teach you how to do that, Michelle. So yeah, thank you for that question. Someone asked a question in chat. Wait a minute, let me
Hmm.
just remove Spotlight. What was the question? I just had it. Uh, how do you walk the line of making your protagonist scared but not immobilized? Well, this is where, I mean, I'm not going to be able to go into all of it here, but this is where the characterization piece comes in. You're really wanting to match your protagonist to the situation in a way that makes this the perfect person to experience this story. I like to use an example from a story of mine called Rumpus Room in The Wishing Pool and Other Stories. It just got, am I allowed to talk about it? It was picked for like Best American Mystery and
Be
Thriller.
oblique.
Oh, anyway, I think I'm allowed to talk about that. But anyway, S.A. Cosby is editing it. And I think the reason that story works is because the character has a motivation to pursue the mystery of what's happening. In a lot of horror, you would be like, you know what, I'm out. That's the thing, the big joke, the Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor joke. Hello, goodbye. I mean, yeah, in a lot of situations, your character would just be out. I'm out. This is not my problem. But I gave her a unique reason that is very much rooted in her history and her characterization that she felt she could not walk away.
You know,
She believed she had to find the answer.
the short answer from the life writing perspective is know yourself. Think back on times when you were terrified, but you did it anyway. You've just learned how to do it. That the motivation to act has to outweigh the fear and the pain. And so that one way or the other, you have to, this is the same thing. Is that any different from how do you drag yourself out of bed every morning? Is it really any different than that? What motivates people to heroic measures? Sometimes it's just they don't want to die.
True.
Sometimes it's they don't want someone they love to die. Those two things right there motivates about 80% or more of all actions in all horror films.
But why people stay in that haunted house? Why people don't leave the campground? That is about the characterizations. And it can't just be for author convenience. It has to make sense. And if you make sense, if your character is real enough and your character makes sense, even if your reader or your audience is saying, I would not do this, they understand why your character is doing it and it doesn't pop them out of the story. So good. Okay. I'm glad that was helpful. Steve, are we getting close to the part where
Yeah,
I
I
read
think
the
that you
excerpt?
need to, I think you want to read but remember, go to www.fearmasters.com. If this workshop does not blow your mind, we'll just give you your money back. I mean, seriously. We're
Yeah,
not playing games with you guys.
pretty much. I would have to put on my readers, people, so I can see my
Aw, you're so cute.
my iPad. So this story right now, my novel is called Bear Creek Lodge. Again, it's not edited yet, so I'm not even sure if my editor is gonna like that title. I like it, but we'll see. It is really briefly set in the world of my short story Incident at Bear Creek Lodge, which had a little creature and Hollywood history, an old woman, an old black woman who had been a star in old Hollywood, and she had so much trauma from that she did something not nice to her grandson, is what that story is about. And there's a creature lurking, and we don't even understand what the creature is or why it's there. I'm exploring that story and those characters both before Incident at Bear Creek Lodge, starting in the 1920s, and after, in a contemporary survival horror Tubi movie. Okay, so it's a combination of Hollywood history, Tubi movie survival horror, written as I want to write it. And so it begins in Gracetown, as I said. I think it's the year, let me see what year it is. It's not that important. It's in the 1920s when a very young child, Maisel Washington, has just made a wish in the wishing pool, which, if you've read my story, The Wishing Pool, you know what that is. Any wish is supposed to come true. She wished for a best friend and nothing happened. So this is my excerpt from my new novel, Bear Creek Lodge. On her way home, a dog was blocking Maisel's path in the middle of McCormick Road. The dog wasn't big, but at Maisel's petite size, it wasn't small either. Maisel was in a bad mood after her gutting disappointment at the wishing pool, and she didn't care a nickel for dogs. Her family had never kept pets because they spent so much time on the road. The only dogs she met were ragged strays, so she viewed children and dogs as natural enemies like gators and bobcats, except she didn't have sharp claws or teeth to fight back. And this dog was sitting ahead of her, fur matted as if it had crawled out of the rust-colored mud that dirtied her shoes from the woods. And it was filthier than any city dog, caked in sludge with only two gray-white rings around its eyes to show its true color. The dog didn't look natural from the start. When she stopped walking, the dog stood up, ears high in attention, tail wagging like it was trying to take flight. The dog might look like it was smiling, but all she saw was teeth that could bite through her clothes and crunch her bones. Get, she said. Get away. The dog only wagged a tail so short that it seemed chopped in half. Maisel didn't know enough about the ways of dogs to understand that a wagging tail was a happy occasion. So the frantic motion from the stumpy tail looked like defiance. When his paws pitched forward with excitement, he looked like he was ready to launch at her. She picked up a stick nearly as wide as her palm, waving it like a sword. Her heartbeat was throbbing in her hand, but she was ready to break this dog's skull if she had to. That's how easy killing to defend herself would come to Maisel Washington from the time she wasn't as tall as the McCormick's cattle fence. But the dog did something she'd never seen any dog do. This dog lowered its head, let out a whimper, and collapsed its front legs, rear haunches still raised up high. The effect sounded crazy as she thought the word, but her eyes saw it plainly. The dog was bowing to her, like one of King Arthur's knights in the stories mother taught her at the schoolhouse. If this had been a grown man in shining armor instead of a muddy dog, he was bowing exactly as she had imagined a knight should revere his queen. Good dog, she said. His stumpy tail wagged harder. Maybe this dog had escaped from a circus that came through Tallahassee, Marianna, or Quincy, the closest to bigger towns. Maiselle's thoughts lit up with fantasies of showing up her older brother and sisters who had traveled with their parents as the Washington All-American Family Troupe before mother decided she was tired of living in dirty train cars and boarding houses on the road. Dorothy and Doris, her sisters, teased her that she could never have fit into the act because she didn't have any talents. No talents. Maisel could tap dance pretty good and do backflips 3 or 4 times without stopping, which was more than anyone else in the family could do, except maybe Daddy, before his back got stiff, which probably was the real reason he quit to take a job clerking for her Uncle Harold, the Negro undertaker, when he got the offer. Since she had grown up watching her family in show business and seen every circus trick and stunt imaginable, Maisel already knew the potential in a talented dog. In Tuscaloosa, she'd seen a tiny dog fixed with a fake lion's mane become the circus's main attraction, with audiences laughing themselves silly as a clown pretended to be a lion tamer who shrieked with fear whenever the little dog chased him. Bowing was a good start, but maybe she could train him to dance, she blurted to the dog, or was she only thinking the word? Whether the command had been spoken or unspoken, the muddy dog stood up on 2 legs and whirled around as dainty as you please, like a ballerina on Mama's jewelry case that tinkled when she opened it. All he was missing was his frilly ballerina skirt. She was so excited that she forgot she'd ever been afraid. She ignored his doggy smell and took hold of his mud-slickened front paws to join him in his dance. They were very nearly eye to eye when the dog stood on his back legs, the perfect size for dance partners. And those eyes, brown pools of love, stared back at her. She and the dog had just met, but those eyes said that this dog would give his life for her. Devotion shone from beyond the mud rings, and his mouth was a wide grin, his bright pink tongue swinging as he panted with joy. And even better, this dog could help her family raise money to fix the leaky roof and buy the automobile Daddy said he wished he could afford. First, I gotta get you cleaned up, Maisel said. If I don't wash off all this nasty mud, you won't have a chance when I take you home. Then you better keep doing tricks when I tell you, or Daddy will chase you away with the broom. You hear me? The dog did hear her. She knew this not only because of the way his ears twitched, excited, but he also let out a polite, obedient bark, still grinning. From that moment on, Maisel was convinced that the dog had not only heard her, but that he understood every word she spoke, and maybe some of the words she didn't speak. None of this struck her as strange, since she knew other children in Gracetown with lizards who waited for them on the porch after school, or wild hares who met them on the road and followed them wherever they went, or rougher creatures in the swamp you'd better hope would not follow you, or so her classmates said. Such things were not unusual in Gracetown, so why shouldn't this dog be able to follow her silent commands? In that instant, with her palms clasping the dog's muddy paws, a strange thought tried to surface. Did this dog crawl out of the muddy ground? In the same moment, she wondered if she had conjured the dog at the wishing pool. She'd asked for a best friend, but she hadn't specified a human being. Was this the wishing pool's answer to her loneliness? Her friend had arrived, muddy or not, smelly or not, ready to lead her to a new life. And that is the beginning of the wishing. So thank you, honey. I muted you. Hold on. See, I told you I'd read you an excerpt, and Whew. Yeah, I cannot wait. Cannot wait to share this book. Can't wait to get my feedback from my editor. Just can't
Yeah,
wait to let it loose in the world.
it's wonderful, honey. And one of the things that I know about it is it's playful. You know, for all of its serious stuff, you let a little bit of your playful side out. Listen,
I had more
everybody,
fun. I had more fun working on this one than I did the reformatory,
we're
although it's
hoping all of you will decide to join us at the class, either live if you're near Upland, California, near Pomona, uh, or via Zoom. We're going to have a fantastic time, and the more the merrier. And understand that we will do everything that we can to help you. And this is our dharma. I mean, it's what it is that we love doing. We love doing this. And we hope that you love writing. If you love writing, we love you. It's as simple as that. And we would love to share our path with you. T,
great.
why don't you have, it's
Thank you all.
www.fearmasters.com.
Yes, I'm just glowing because I'm looking at all the great comments in chat, and thanks everyone. It's tough. I'm insecure just like every other writer. No one's ever heard this before. Steve's the only person and my agent are the only two people who've read this so far. So I'm thrilled that it doesn't suck, I guess, and that you appreciate it, and we would love to see you in our
Doesn't
class
suck, honey.
September 13th, coming up in a month. Literally 1 month from today is when we're teaching our class at fearmasters.com. Sign up by Friday to get that $200 off, or you'll be mad at yourself if you change your mind later. Everybody have a great night. Thank you so much for coming. We will have a replay that we will send to you, and hopefully we'll see you in class. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, but let's let
Thank
people
you.
unmute and say goodbye.
Yeah, say goodbye.
Thank
Say goodbye.
you. That was
Thank you all for
fantastic.
coming.
That was
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
reading. Thank all of you.
Yay.
Can't do this without you.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Fine. Thank you guys so much.
Bye bye.